We are getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
There is a difference between a ransom note and a message. A ransom note is sent to investigators. A ransom note is sent to the family. A ransom note is part of a negotiation. But this message was not sent to the FBI. It was not sent to detectives. It was sent to TMZ. On day 68 of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, just hours after Savannah Guthrie returned to national television for the first time in nearly 2 months, TMZ received 2 new letters from the same sender. The first letter said Nancy is dead. The second letter said she was seen alive. Same person, same morning. 2 completely opposite claims. And that contradiction is where everything shifts. Let's step back. Nancy Guthrie disappeared more than 2 months ago. She was 84 years old. She required daily heart medication. Her pacemaker stopped syncing at 2:28 a.m. On the night she vanished. The original theory, and one many investigators quietly considered, was that this was planned, not impulsive, not random. Planned, possibly involving more than one person. If she was abducted and injured in the struggle, and if she was taken without access to medication, 7 weeks becomes a devastating timeline. That is the uncomfortable reality the family has likely been confronting privately. Now enter the letter. The sender claims Nancy is no longer alive. They say they know where the body is. They claim to know who the kidnappers are and where they are hiding. And in exchange for that information, they demand half a Bitcoin, approximately $35,000. That number matters because the original ransom demand was $6 million. Then it dropped to $70,000. Now it is roughly $35,000. The price attached to Nancy's life has steadily declined. That pattern tells you something about leverage. Real kidnappers increase pressure. They do not reduce value over time unless desperation replaces control. But here is where it becomes even more unusual. Just hours later, the same sender submitted a second letter. This time, the claim changed entirely. I saw her alive with them in the state of Sonora, Mexico. Sonora is approximately 70 miles from Tucson. It borders Arizona. It is close enough to feel plausible, close enough to trigger fear. But the first letter says she is dead. The second says she was alive. Both cannot be true, and whoever wrote those letters knows that. Former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Jason Pack analyzed the communication. His first observation was timing. When the letters arrived on the exact morning Savannah returned to the Today Show, a real witness does not follow media cycles. A real witness does not wait for maximum visibility. A real witness calls the FBI. The second red flag was the contradiction. In investigative psychology, internal inconsistency destroys credibility. If someone lies about one central fact, life or death, every other claim becomes suspect. The third red flag was the delivery method. TMZ is not law enforcement. It is entertainment media. If someone truly knew the location of a body, they would contact detectives immediately. They would not negotiate through a celebrity news outlet. But this sender has been doing exactly that since February 11th. TMZ described the contact as incessant. Repeated letters, repeated Bitcoin demands, shifting narratives. And throughout all of this, there has been no public move from the FBI suggesting they consider these communications credible. No confirmed search in Sonora, no public verification, no acknowledgement that the claims are legitimate. Even more telling, the Bitcoin wallet provided by the sender remains empty. Not one transaction. If the information were real and verifiable, someone would have paid by now. That has not happened. Now here is where the situation becomes more complicated. Not all letters in this case are the same. 2 days after Nancy disappeared on February 3rd, a ransom letter was sent directly to the Guthrie family. Not to the media, to the family. It demanded $6 million. And that letter included details that had not been made public. Specific clothing, specific damage related to the abduction. details that suggested insider knowledge. Savannah Guthrie publicly stated she believes those early letters were real. The FBI took them seriously. They tracked the Bitcoin wallet. They contacted Mexican authorities. That set of letters carried investigative weight. Then the pattern shifted. Letters began arriving at TMZ. The first demanded 1 Bitcoin for the name of the kidnapper. The sender did not claim to be the kidnapper, only that they knew who it was. Then the demand shrank, the claims expanded, the story changed. Dead, alive, Mexico, body location, hiding place, negotiation through media. That is not escalation, that is noise. And noise can serve multiple purposes. It can generate attention, it can attempt to extract money, or it can deliberately misdirect. Jennifer Coffindaffer, another former FBI agent following the case, called the new letters fraudulent and not credible. The Pima County Sheriff's Office repeated its standard position. All tips are taken seriously and passed to detectives. But serious review does not mean serious belief. So now we arrive at the central question. If this sender truly saw Nancy alive in Mexico, why not contact federal authorities immediately? If they know where a body is located, why negotiate publicly instead of privately? And if they are telling the truth, why contradict themselves within hours? 2 letters, 2 opposite realities. Same author. Someone is lying. The real danger is not just the deception, it is the distraction. Every time false claims gain traction, investigative focus shifts. Resources divert. Hope rises and collapses again. And somewhere, the person responsible for Nancy's disappearance watches the confusion unfold. When you remove the emotion and look only at structure, 2 very different patterns emerge in this case. The first pattern began early, February 3rd, 2 days after Nancy disappeared. A ransom letter was sent directly to the Guthrie family, not to TMZ, not to a reporter, not to social media, to the family. It demanded $6 million in Bitcoin. And more importantly, it included details that had not been made public, details about what Nancy was wearing, details about damage connected to the abduction, specific information that suggested proximity to the crime. Those details changed how law enforcement approached the communication. Because in ransom investigations, non-public knowledge is currency. It is proof of access. It is proof that the sender may have real involvement. The FBI did not dismiss that letter. They tracked the Bitcoin wallet. They monitored transactions. They contacted authorities in Mexico. They treated it as operationally significant. Savannah Guthrie later said publicly that she believes the early letters sent to the family were real. That statement carries weight. Families are not easily convinced of authenticity unless something inside the communication confirms it. Now compare that to what began on February 11th. Letters started arriving at TMZ. The first one demanded 1 Bitcoin in exchange for the name of the kidnapper. Not Nancy. Just the name. The sender did not claim to be directly involved, only that they knew. That distinction matters. Real kidnappers negotiate for the victim, not for gossip. Then the pattern escalated, not in seriousness, but in inconsistency. More letters, lower demands, even bigger claims. On April 6th, 2 new letters arrived. One says Nancy is dead. One says she was seen alive in Sonora. That is not evolution. That is contradiction. And contradiction destroys leverage. If you are truly in possession of decisive information, you do not undermine your own credibility within hours. Former FBI agent Jason Pack highlighted something critical about this shift. The letters sent to the family arrived immediately after the disappearance. The letters sent to TMZ arrived days later, then continued, repeatedly, almost obsessively. TMZ described the sender as incessant, constant contact, constant demands, constant shifting. In investigative psychology, that pattern suggests something different than direct involvement. It suggests someone feeding off attention. The more, someone attempting to insert themselves into a high-profile case. Because real kidnappers maintain controlled communication. They are careful, they limit exposure, they protect identity. They do not spam entertainment media outlets. Now look at the money. $6 million, then $70,000, now $35,000. The price attached to information continues to drop. That does not reflect confidence. That reflects diminishing influence. If you truly know the location of a body, your leverage increases over time, not decreases. Unless you are guessing, unless you are bluffing, unless you are fishing for reaction. And the Bitcoin wallet connected to these newer letters remains empty. No transfers, no negotiation, no proof of life. In legitimate kidnapping cases, proof of life is essential. It is the mechanism that sustains negotiation. Without it, Ransom collapses. The letters to TMZ have never provided proof of life. Only claims, and the claims contradict. Now consider motive. Why send letters to TMZ on the exact morning Savannah returned to the Today Show? That timing is not accidental. That timing maximizes attention. A real witness does not wait for television scheduling. A real witness does not monitor broadcast calendars. A real witness contacts authorities. The decision to contact TMZ instead of law enforcement is revealing. It suggests the sender values exposure over resolution. It suggests the sender understands media amplification. And it suggests the sender may be exploiting a national story. Jennifer Coffindaffer responded directly. She called the new letters fraudulent and not credible. But she did not hedge. She did not suggest partial validity. She dismissed them. That level of certainty from a former federal agent is not casual. Meanwhile, the FBI has made no visible operational move based on the Sonora claim. No confirmed border searches, no announced collaboration tied to this specific letter. Silence can mean many things, but in this context, it likely means skepticism. Now step back and compare the two groups of letters side by side. Group 1, sent to the family, early, contained non-public details, demanded high ransom, triggered immediate investigative action. Group 2, sent to TMZ repeatedly, contained contradictions, demanded shrinking amounts, triggered no visible operational shift. Those are not minor differences. They are structural differences, which raises the possibility that we are not dealing with one evolving sender, but two entirely separate motives, one possibly connected to the crime, one almost certainly opportunistic. The danger in conflating the two is obvious. If investigators or the public treat all letters equally, noise can overshadow signal, and signal is what matters. Every high-profile case attracts opportunists, people who crave proximity to tragedy, people who attempt to monetize headlines, people who fabricate insight. The longer a case remains unsolved, the more vulnerable it becomes to that kind of interference. And on day 68, with a $1.2 million reward on the table, the incentive for exploitation is enormous, which leads to the next uncomfortable question. If the TMZ letters are fraudulent, why persist? Why continue sending messages that contradict themselves? Why lower the price? Why escalate claims without proof? Because attention is addictive. Because control over narrative creates illusion of importance. Or because someone benefits from keeping the public distracted. There is something more dangerous than a false lead. It is a loud false lead. Because loud distractions do not just waste time, they redirect attention. They alter emotion, they fracture focus. On day 68 of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, the headline was not about forensic evidence. It was not about search warrants. It was not about digital recovery or border coordination. It was about two letters sent to TMZ. She's dead. She was seen alive. Same sender, same day. And for a moment, that contradiction became the center of the national conversation. That is the power of noise. Every high-profile investigation eventually splits into two tracks, the investigative track and the media track. The investigative track moves quietly, slowly, Methodically, the media track moves fast, emotionally, reactively. When someone inserts contradictory claims into the media track, the impact is immediate. Hope spikes, despair crashes, speculation multiplies. And while that happens publicly, investigators continue working privately. The real risk is not that law enforcement believes the letters. It is that the public does, because public belief shapes narrative, and narrative shapes pressure. Let's examine what these letters actually do. First, they introduce instability. When someone says Nancy is dead, it shifts emotional posture. When someone says she was seen alive, it reverses that posture. The public cannot settle into one reality. The family cannot process one direction. That instability is exhausting. Second, they create investigative friction. Even if detectives believe the letters are fraudulent, protocol requires review. Digital tracing, wallet monitoring, metadata analysis, IP tracing. Each letter must be assessed. Every assessment consumes time, and time is the most valuable resource in any investigation. Third, they generate visibility, and visibility can benefit the wrong person. If the individual responsible for Nancy's disappearance is watching coverage, then every false claim creates fog. Fog hides movement. Fog delays clarity. Now ask yourself something simple. If you truly knew where Nancy was, alive or dead, why would you split your own credibility in half? Why send two opposing statements within hours? If you truly wanted justice, why negotiate with a media outlet instead of law enforcement? If you truly feared retaliation, why create a public paper trail attached to a Bitcoin wallet? The contradiction is not subtle. It is structural, and structural contradictions are rarely accidental. They suggest fabrication or manipulation, or both. Now consider something else. The reward in this case has reached $1.2 million. That is not symbolic. That is transformative money. Someone who truly knows something has a powerful incentive to speak directly to authorities. Silence in the face of that reward becomes its own data point, which brings us to the most unsettling element of all, the silence of the real offender. While letters circulate, while headlines fluctuate, while social media debates authenticity, the person who actually took Nancy has said nothing. No verified proof of life, no follow-up demand tied to the original $6 million, no escalation, just silence. In legitimate ransom cases, silence after deadlines is rare. Deadlines create urgency. Urgency sustains leverage. In this case, deadlines passed. February 5th, February 9th. No proof of life followed. Now, on day 68, the loudest voice in the room belongs to someone who cannot keep their story consistent. And that imbalance matters. Because the more oxygen false narratives receive, the more they obscure the central reality. An 84-year-old woman vanished. Her pacemaker stopped syncing at 2:28 a.m. Blood was found. And no one has been publicly charged. The letters to TMZ may be fraudulent. They may be opportunistic. They may be nothing more than digital scavenging. But they highlight something deeper. This case has reached the phase where exploitation becomes inevitable. The longer answers are delayed, the more external noise attempts to fill the vacuum. But the question is not whether the TMZ letters are credible. The behavioral analysis strongly suggests they are not. The question is what purpose they serve. Are they simple attempts at financial gain? Are they attempts to insert oneself into a national story? Or are they something more strategic, an effort to keep the case unstable? Instability benefits one person more than anyone else, the person responsible. Because clarity closes distance, and distance narrows options. Right now, there are two competing forces at work. One is investigative persistence, forensic tracking, digital tracing, financial monitoring. The other is narrative chaos, contradictory letters, fluctuating claims, public confusion. One builds toward resolution, the other delays it. Oakham and the individual who truly knows what happened to Nancy understands that as long as confusion dominates headlines, clarity struggles for attention. So here is the final question. Is the liar the person sending the letters? Or is the liar someone else entirely? Someone content to let misinformation circulate while remaining silent? Because silence can be as strategic as speech. Nancy Guthrie disappeared 68 days ago. 2 letters claim she is dead and alive within the same morning. The FBI has made no public move validating those claims. The Bitcoin wallet sits empty, and the only consistent pattern in the TMZ communications is inconsistency, which leaves us here, a family waiting, a reward growing, an investigation moving quietly, and someone, somewhere, benefiting from noise. The letters say she's dead. Like they say she was seen alive. They cannot both be true. But one thing is certain, someone is lying. And the longer that lie circulates, the easier it becomes for the truth to hide. The real question now is not whether the TMZ letters are real. It is whether the silence behind them is more telling than the words themselves.